Well, reactions are trailing the Central Bank of Nigeria's directive requiring financial institutions to collect customers' social media handles, email addresses, phone numbers, residential addresses, and other relevant information. The Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERAP has kicked against the directive and is asking the acting governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Fasua Shonubi, to immediately delete what it describes as patently unlawful provisions in the CBN customer due diligence regulations directing banks to obtain information on customers' social media handles for purposes of identification. SERAP's Deputy Director Kolawole Oluwadare argues that the CBN regulations, quote, and directive to banks to obtain details of customers' social media addresses violate Nigerians' rights to freedom of expression and privacy, adding that it is inconsistent and incompatible with the rule of law. Actually, SERAP was meant to be on the show, and at the last minute, while that has been cancelled, we're hoping to get SERAP to come back. But for now, we have economist Tope Fasua. He joins me to speak more on this. Good to see you, and thanks for your time. We had spoken about the president's move to rejig the economy. Before we get to this, first of all, let's talk about the convergence of the naira, which is one big one. I see the smile on your face, and people are still trying to get a sense of what that means.
Yeah, well, from among the advocates of convergence, and I'm not particularly a fan of it. What it means is to shift the official rates to meet the black market rate, and that's what I've seen so far. And for me, from a proper economic perspective, the so-called black market rate is not a rate you recognize as a government, much less you use it as a benchmark for your official rates, because there'll always be demands you can't meet. And if you're unlucky, if you try to catch up with it, then it shifts to the right again. The curve shifts to the right, and then you find yourself like a dog chasing his tail. And I've always wondered about this. But, however, it must be said that the experiment so far shows that the black market hasn't quite shifted that much. We don't know what will happen in the next few days. Perhaps those running the affairs for now have a magic wand. And of course, yeah, they've shown to be magicians in some ways. And I'm talking of President Bola Tinubu. You know, and perhaps they have a hang of it and they know how to control that market. However, you know, from a strictly economic perspective, financial markets perspective, the black market is what it is. You know, it's an illegal market. If you're going to have to deal in that market, it has to be surreptitious. You have to go through the back door as a government to intervene. Whatever it is you're doing, either you're picking people up or you're putting some money there, whatever. You know, I'm not here to suggest to them. It has to be under the table. And so, however, what we've seen so far is that official rates have moved from about 461 or thereabout to it closed at 763 today. And so it's looking like, okay, maybe this is where the rates are going to be. I probably want to leave it at that because there's been some outliers in the trades as well. And, you know, some deals were closed at much higher than 763 today. I'll leave it at that, you know. So it is what it is.
Well, it is what it is. And again, the argument, I recall then years ago, Nigerians have always spoken about the need for data. We believe that data is flying all around. Everyone is collecting data from an average Nigerian. The NCC is there, your banks, they're there, the telcos are there, almost everyone. And now the CBN has added more to it. Speak to us about what the CBN is set to do, if you have a sense of this, because SERAP, that's meant to be here with you on the show, hasn't been able to make that appointment. But again, this is something that many Nigerians are a little bit worried.
Right. Before I speak on that, I quickly want to say that, so my perspective on this foreign exchange is that if you're going to then take the black market as a reference rate, you have to be ready to do what you have to do to see if there are what they call in economics externalities in that reference rate, which is the black market rate. Perhaps maybe it shouldn't be at 770 where it was. Maybe it should be at 700 so that this other guy is catching up somewhere in the middle. That's what ought to have been done. However, the black market rate was taken as sacrosanct, and this other rate was made to move to that point. So that's it. So regarding this, I listened to your introduction to this program, and you also did mention that they want the banks to get people's email addresses, phone numbers, and also to check where people are living, or to confirm the address. Now those ones have been there since forever. And it's called the KYC, Know Your Customer, and it's done everywhere. In fact, in some jurisdictions, it's done every year. They would want to know your status. Where are you? Are you still living where you're living, and all that every year. In some jurisdictions around the world, So those ones have been there, but I think an additional layer has been added, which is this idea of social media handle. And I think the central bank said, this is all about terrorism financing and, money laundering and so on. Now, one thing, from the perspective of the central bank, what I want people to understand is that the central bank is a very integral part of economic and financial crimes, what you call the infrastructure, to ensure that these things don't continue to happen. So they work closely with the EFCC, with the NFIU, Financial Intelligence Unit, and every other agency in that bracket to ensure that Nigeria, of course, we've got a reputation to deal with, but we also want to come clean to the rest of the world. We want to show ourselves to be, walking the straight and narrow, and to begin to shed some of this unsavory reputation that we have gathered over time. Perhaps that's the angle they are coming from. So I kind of see it, but I must quickly say, when I heard it, my point was, how do you verify? Yeah. So if you want somebody's address, you can always go to the address and ask about him and come there and be sure that he lives there. But if I give you a social media handle, in these days where, especially on places like Twitter, people use all sorts of anonymous funny names, So how do you tell that is my name? I mean, people, when you see a name like ITZ something underscore, yeah, and that's what you see. So, and then if I want to, can I impersonate someone else? Because you're not going to see any picture anywhere, no data apart from this ITZ something. What it wants is the social media handle. It could be misleading. That's the point. And so that's where people will then ask, okay, what do you need this for? Of course, I've also read the reaction of Serap, and they're coming from a social angle to the extent that, unfortunately, during the NSAS period, the central bank kind of inserted itself. And when they were talking about blocking some people's account, I felt then that it was totally unnecessary for the central bank to have done that. So maybe they're coming from that perspective of suspicion,
Well, it's a shame we still have not been able to get the CBN to come explain more. I'm excited that you're here, because some of the key concerns, for instance, the very seniors in our society, most of these people are not on social media.
Yeah.
And there's also what we call the parody account, whereby, yes, another Tope Fasua who is not the real Tope Fasua is there.
Many, yeah.
So now, how can because if you talk about fraud, which you've just spoken about, financial crimes and all that, Nigerians had thought that with BVN, this would have been able to be nipped in the bud. We've seen many Nigerians that have been swindled, defrauded over, online purchase. And when they go to the banks are handicapped in helping these people. So the logic of bringing the social media account into play here is something that many Nigerians, Serap inclusive, they're still trying to wrap their fingers around.
Yeah, indeed. It looks a bit far-fetched, if you ask me. And again, as we've said, so many issues, fake accounts, all sorts of things, impersonations, what have you. How much detail do you want? Do you want the metadata on the apart from the username? Do you want other data? Do you want to drill down? Mind you, again, for example, a place like the United States Embassy, if you wanted a visa today, they would ask you to put your social media account. And in that instance, you know, I don't know how people handle it, you know, because again, we've got so many people who have all these funny fake accounts. People like to operate under anonymity to be able to do all sorts of funny things. Now, if you look at it from that angle, but also from a different angle, if we say, okay, what about terrorists and people like that, you know, who, and then they make a lot of money and they are running their account. You want to be able to trace as a government, as government agencies, you want to be able to trace that this is where this money is from. This is this person who is making money from terrorism and then running an account under the guise that he was clean and so on. You know, so we have all sorts of things going on. But what do we do? You know, like you said, people who don't even have social media, who don't want to be on social media, are they going to be forced? So is it optional? So if it's optional, and then I think I'd want to look at it this way. If because it's coming from CBN, people are a bit, you know, at a loss and they're asking questions. Is CBN a security agency? Yes, CBN collaborates with security agencies a lot, but CBN is not a security agency. There was a time that the EFCC asked all professionals to fill a certain form on what's it called now, money laundry. It's called SCOML or something like that. And all of us, accountants, lawyers, everybody had to fill. You know, I think they've kind of de-emphasized it now. If this was coming from the EFCC, telling the central bank to instruct the banks, okay? Because the CBN is the regulator of the banks. Perhaps people will understand a little bit more, you know, than the central bank coming out. So I think there's some sort of miscommunication, some communication management that needs to be done there to know where is this coming from, especially given all the battery, if you like, that the central bank has gone through lately. I mean, they have a suspended central bank governor who's somewhere still in EFCC cell, you know, so perhaps this is not the time to cut a lot of...
Is it with the EFCC or the DSS?
Oh, well, one of them, okay, you know, I mean, sometimes I mix these guys up, but, you know, perhaps it's not a good time to cut more controversies, if you like, you know. And like you said...
you think this is controversial, right?
Well, of course, if Serap is taking them to court and all of that, you know, we want to be able to say that we've turned a new leaf, even in the central bank. We want to say that, you know, the next few years is going to be a bit stable in the central bank, you know, whereas they should be able to do their work. But, you know, running into brick walls with the society and all of that, I think is unnecessary, you know. They've gone through a very remarkable period of time, I must tell you. You know, it's not everything the central bank does that's bad, including some of the availments they've done in terms of, you know, kind of incentivizing, or, you know, the kind of loans they've given people in society to keep the economy going. But when the chips are down, the chips are down. You take the rap, you know what I'm saying? And so that's what's going on now. And then this one. So the practicality of getting social media handles, or what do you want to do with it? Noting the fact that, yes, apart from the US Embassy that I mentioned earlier, most likely if you wanted to give someone a job in this organization, your organization today, you want to check them out on the internet. In fact, most things that what people do these days, if you meet a new friend and you get his number or whatever and his surname, you are getting on Google to know who is this person, or do they really exist? Or is it a fake name or something? That is almost instinctive these days. Perhaps this is part of where central bank is coming from. But if you say that people have given you their names, their phone numbers, their emails, their address, physical addresses, and they have BVN, and still frauds goes on and they're not resolved, are you saying that the BVNs are not enough to be able to trace what's going on, or people are getting multiple BVNs? What exactly is going on? So those are the questions that people will ask.
And quickly, let's see if we can close on this. You're a staunch supporter of the president, and he's just left Paris. And what, you know, when they go for such, the average Nigerian will love to know how this trickle down into real sense, you know, economic development for the country.
Well, you know, for the Paris trip, you mean?
Absolutely.
You see that the Paris trip is about financing, global financing and stuff. And the president, as you know, as most people know, is a deal maker. So on the sidelines of that meeting, he had quite a number of the big meeting. He had quite a number of meetings with people, you know, people striking deals, talking to people, trying to reposition Nigeria as a place to do business. It's not going to be a short dash. It's not a 100 meters dash, it's more of a marathon. But the earlier we start, again, the better. Because in the past few years, it's not been easy. Of course, COVID came, everybody kind of shut down the system. And then, of course, the system is opening up a little bit more, you know. Now, Nigeria is still... When I look at Nigeria's balance sheet, I see opportunities. It's an unexplored balance sheet. You know, yes, if in spite of all the noise and all of the complaint, there's so much we can do, except we don't want to do stuff. Today I was studying Pakistan. And Pakistan does have a lot of similarities to Nigeria. It's almost uncanny. You know, almost the same population, 248 million there, 210 million there. But their GDP is about $348 billion, whereas ours is about $450 billion. You would ask yourself how we were able to do that, given the fact that they are modern. And indeed, in many parts, the Pakistani economy is a bit more sophisticated than ours. In fact, a lot of our generals get trained in Pakistan, then they come back. You know, they're quite a strong country, a nuclear country indeed, you know. However, you know, their debt to GDP is 78%, meaning that they've borrowed $271 billion. And Nigeria is still around 177 billion. We make a lot of noise, but look, if you know you have agenda for your people, if you know you have investment to do in human capital to reposition your country, if you know you have industries to support and create, you know, manufacturing to reposition, then you have to do what you have to do. And I think that's the kind of thing that President Tinubu is going to be able to do. Of course, people are complaining about some of the decisions that have been taken, hard decisions. Okay, so now is the time. We expect that when it comes back, he's going to be rolling out palliatives, ideas about palliatives after palliatives, going to be telling people how, you know, how they're going to feel the hope. This is supposed to be the renewed hope agenda, is what we're driving this time around. So we expect him to come back with goodies for Nigerians.
Tope Fasua, a fine place to leave it. Many thanks for your time.
You're welcome.